Hey, how's everybody doing? Connor, how you doing, man? I can't hear you. Is that me or that's you? You're muted, my
That's
man.
me. Now I'm not.
Wow.
Let's go.
Guys, college recruiting questions, drop them below. Drop all of your college recruiting questions in the comments. We're going to try to get to as many of them as we possibly can. Yeah, you came on. You were muted and everything, man. I felt like you were unprepared.
It's tough. I'm prepared. Come on, man. I'm ready. I'm
You look
ready.
unprepared.
I'm ready. That's a strong word. It's very strong, especially at 1 p.m. All right.
That's right. All right. College recruiting questions, drop them below. Dude, did you see what I posted in client results this morning?
Awesome, huh?
Cool.
Super cool.
Little 156K scholarship. Love to see it.
It's
Yeah.
super cool too because they implemented, one to two things. It wasn't like they had to do this huge overhaul with everything. Like they
Yeah.
had a good strategy coming in, they got what they needed, and it turned out great.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I'm really excited for them. I got to shoot them an email back. How does it work if your GP, you say GPS, but I'm going to assume you meant GPA is low, but you're getting it up. So how does it work? I don't really know what that means. But for the most part, they're going to look at the most recent academics that you have more than like everything as a whole. But I will say, like higher academic schools, they're going to go all the way back to like freshman year. They will. And that's just the harsh reality. There have been a couple kids that I'm thinking of where they got like a C freshman year, and it's a super high academic school, and that C is coming back to bite them. So, do your homework, sit in the front row, study for tests. Academics matter. What age should I start trying to get recruited? When would you start, Connor?
14, 15 is usually a good timeline. Entering into sophomore year is like when everything needs to progress, right? Like freshman year, you're running into problems with them being unable to communicate. There's still a huge development pool that has to happen, right? From freshman to sophomore years, where you usually see the biggest leap physically. Women's sports going to be a little bit sooner, but yeah, going into sophomore year is probably a good time to start everything and the entire process. And then as you get through sophomore year is when the money hits the road, right? So as you enter into junior year, it just makes it even more important. It's when coaches can contact you, when they can start to actually pick up the phone and call you, which is awesome. And yeah, it's just a fun process. But starting in sophomore year is probably my biggest recommendation.
Yeah, I think for most sports. And of course, it always depends on the sport that you play. It depends on your goals. So, kind of across the board, if in general, if we were to grossly generalize it, we'd say that if you're interested in D1 schools, you need to start earlier. If you're interested in D3, NAI, junior colleges, then you can start later in the process. And then, of course, it depends on the schools themselves because the more competitive the schools are, then that's obviously going to change things too. And then the sport, because the more competitive the sport is, right? We talk a lot about lacrosse, volleyball. The one that I put in client results this morning, Connor, was lacrosse, right? Aggressively early. They always recruit aggressively early. So it doesn't just relate to your goals, but also the sport that you play. What do you think about the portal and the future of it? Well, we could talk for a long time about just thoughts about the portal. The more specific the questions are, the better we'll be able to give you advice. But what do I think about the portal and the future of it? All right. So there's two questions there. First of all, what do I think about the portal? Here's what I think about the portal. Here's some like things that just immediately come to mind. The first thing is it's harder for high school athletes to get recruited. The second thing is the rewards for getting recruited as a high school athlete are better than ever before. Also, there's more scholarship money. You have NIL. And anytime, and I've talked about this before, anytime you have a changing landscape, like what's going on in recruiting right now with the transfer portal, NIL, roster caps, all those different things entering the picture, you have a lot of people who no longer know how to navigate that world. And that's not just families. That's also like recruiting services, programs, etc. Whenever that happens, there's a small group of people that adopt early and they adapt early. And so they figure out how the new way is going to work before everybody else does. And those people have a massive advantage. And so I think the portal, like, what do I think about the portal? I think it's great for kids who are in college. And I think it's not so great for kids that are in high school. But I don't think that it's an excuse to say, we're just not going to get recruited. No, athletes are getting recruited to awesome schools, to D1 schools. And then the future of the portal. Yeah, it's a good question. Listen, I don't think the portal's going anywhere. We've sort of gone down a road of no return. Like how are they going to turn that around, at least in the near future? They're probably not. Like the portal is here to stay. And it's dramatically affecting all of these sports institutions. Like when you have institutional change like that, it's really hard to go back. So the portal's not going anywhere. And it's just going to have this long-term effect of what I call trickle down, right? Which is essentially where athletes who used to go D1 are no longer going to go D1. And now they're going to go D2, D3, NAI, and JUCO. And then those athletes are going to transfer to D1s later on, is really what you're going to see a lot. Connor, what am I missing there?
It's funny. Go look at the interview, guys, if you get a second, with Coach Signetti, who's Indiana's head coach. Storied everywhere he's been, he's won, right? And go look at what he says about the portal, and it's need based, right? So the programs that you see that are very, very successful, they do both. And so what Jack was saying about Division Ones, Division Twos, Division Threes, it's need based, meaning if they don't bring in, just say this year, a 2026 that is as talented, or they don't have that position filled, and then they might go into the portal to fill that position for a year or two. But if they're trying to do every single position for every single sport, it's completely unsustainable, right? You're having to rebuild culture, rebuild rosters every single year. So you still have to develop and bring in incoming freshmen. So there's some people who do it half and half. There's some people who do 60-40. It just depends on what that school looks like. But go watch his interview. It's really cool, and it actually gives you guys some perspective on what it looks like for one of the best coaches in college football to actually dive into that a little bit further.
Yeah, awesome. Couple questions from YouTube. There's two questions here. So the first question: should you email multiple coaches at one school? The answer is yes, absolutely, you should. But we always say you're emailing multiple coaches at one school, but you're not CCing them on the same email. So they're not all getting one email. They're getting, if there's 4 different coaches that you're going to contact, they're each getting their own individual email. The reasons for that there's many of them. One is if you CC coaches, you're more likely to end up in spam. The second one, and I think I gave this analogy yesterday, and so I'm not going to go too deep in on it, but it's that like old Western meme where you have everybody like pointing the guns at each other in a room. And it's like, nobody knows whose job it is to respond there. Like people are going to look at it and be like, oh, that person will handle it. That person will handle it. And even if they like the player, then nobody ends up responding. And so it's critical. And there's other reasons. You can personalize the message to the coach's last name. You can do other things with that, but you should absolutely contact more than one coach at each school. And then the second question was, how do you reply back to a coach inviting you to a junior day or a camp when it's really far away and you can't really go, but you're interested in the school? Connor, you got that one?
Yeah. So when you say, read that one back to me, the last sentence, he's far away and he can't go.
So the idea is that he got invited to a junior day or a camp, but it's far away and he can't go, but he's still interested in the school.
Yeah, so just tell them you have a prior obligation. Okay, so and this is something that we use a lot, is like you have a prior obligation, right? Like you can't make it for whatever reason, or you take the alternative route, which is be completely transparent with them. Hey, coach, the logistics just don't work, and the school's too far away, and just be transparent with them. Okay, like a lot of what we do is just being direct and being honest. So if you can give them something, whether it be a prior obligation that you guys already have booked, or just be honest and say the logistics don't match up, that you're super interested in the program and you would love to learn more, that's a great way. Also, make sure that you're including some video in that. Okay. Like we want to continue to provide evidence. We talked about this last week, Jack and I, but continue to provide evidence. The more times that you're emailing back and forth and having dialect, even if it's an old video, even if it's from training, even if it's a 7-on-7, whatever it is, right? Like make sure that you're sending them video of some sort while you attach this, like, hey, I can't make it to your camp. Okay.
The other thing is provide them or ask them if there's another way that you can get to them or that they can see you. Now, for a junior day, that might not happen because they're not going to be able to move the junior day to another location. Like that's not going to happen. But if you said a camp as well, if you can't make a camp, then you might be able to like, hey, is there another way I can get in front of you and your staff? Because maybe there's another event that they're going to be at that you're already planning on going to. So make the effort. Coaches will really appreciate if you make the effort to get in front of them, even if you can't go to their camp. And that's a really big deal. Is no, I just can't make your camp. That's one way of doing it. Or you can say, hey, I can't make your camp, but is there another way that I can get in front of you guys? And you're making the effort to do that, and coaches will appreciate that. As a track runner, if I don't have the times the school wants, should I still email them? My first question is, how do you know you have the times the school wants? If it's because they told you what they are, then sure, I would not email them until you're at the times they want. For something like track, it's very black and white. Okay. So it's black and white in that sense. If you're assuming the times that they want and you don't really know what those are, then you should absolutely still be emailing them. Never assume what somebody is looking for or not looking for. And so, yeah, I would definitely, in that case, if you don't know, definitely still email them. Of course, for those of you who are interested in email, January 20th, we're hosting Email 101 workshop. We're going to divulge everything that we're learning. We got a bunch of people signed up for it already. It's going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. Deanna, how are you, Deanna? It's great to see you. What do you do if a player is sick during a showcase? How do you approach with coaches after the event of play wasn't ideal? The first thing is, if you're going to be sick during a showcase, you should tell those coaches ahead of time that you are sick, so they have that lens going into the event. Because if they think that your kid is 100% and your kid is not 100%, they're evaluating them like they're 100% when they're not. So the biggest thing actually happens before you go to that event, which is telling the coach, hey, coach, looking forward to seeing you this weekend and playing in front of you. I've been coming off of the flu. I'll be a little bit sick, but looking forward to seeing you. Right. And that way they know, all right, well, at least they're, I get the idea that maybe they're sick. And so they're going to evaluate your player through that lens. On the back end of it, Connor, I would be curious what you think about this, because I have one opinion, but I'm curious if you have a different opinion on this. How would you handle it?
Yeah, look, if we start mentioning a lot of things, right, whether it be my foot was bothering me or I was sick, it's just to the coach, it sends a weird message. Okay. So it's almost better to not mention it. And then if you get in communication with them, and this is personal preference, but it's what's worked in the past with some of our athletes, is we had an individual probably 3 weeks ago that didn't perform well. It wasn't because they were sick, it was just because they had an off day. And one of our parents asked, hey, do we mention that they weren't playing at 100%? That wasn't their best showing. And I said, no, don't mention it. And the coach actually caught back, and they jumped on a phone call the next week. Okay. So sometimes what we think is good or bad is just completely up to the coach, right? So we may think that was a poor performance, but the coach may feel like they fit right into your program. So leaving it up to their discretion and just reminding them of what you did while you were there, or just saying thank you, is a much better alternative route. And then if it comes up at a later date where you perform even better, and this is where we consistently provide evidence and context for what we're doing in the present moment with our video and what we're doing with our play. Jack, what is your take on that?
That's my take exactly. So
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of trying to explain why an athlete didn't play well. It just kind of sounds like boy who cried wolf. Like it just sounds like you're making excuses for it. And anytime that even if you're not making an excuse and it's a legitimate excuse, it sounds like it. That's the perception, is that it sounds like you're making an excuse. And then that does two things. One, puts you in a position of weakness, because now you're trying to justify why that happened. And that puts you on the back foot, which when you're marketing, you want to be always sorry, I got a frog in my throat. When you're marketing, you always want to have your strengths in the conversation. So you want the power. And so you trying to justify it puts you on the back end. That's not the move. But then the second piece of it is, I don't know how many of you guys like people who make excuses. Like, no, that's never a good trait. Like, never a good trait that anybody likes. There's nobody who's like, I love that guy. He's really good at making excuses. Like, that just doesn't happen. So I would not mention it. The other thing that Connor touched on that I want to double down on, and this happened to me, which is like, just because you have a bad outing doesn't mean that you're not going to get recruited by the school. So for me, when I was getting recruited by West Point, they came out to watch me. The game that they came to watch me on, I played baseball. I struck out like 3 times in the game. And I knew that they were there to watch me. And I was like, well, there goes that. No more with that one. I guess we're starting over. But I got a call from the coach a week later, very similar to what Connor said. He was like, hey, man, yeah, loved what I saw. Thought it was great. And I was like, and I straight up asked him, because I was pretty bold. was like, were you watching the same game? Like, did you see what happened? He's like, yeah, you struck out. It's like, dude, I saw so much video of you before that, and I talked to so many people. I know you can play. He's like, no, what I saw was that you struck out, but you didn't hold your head. You had a good attitude about it. You got back. You're still a good teammate, and you got after it. You're going to have bad days. Cool. That's exactly the mentality we're looking for kids here at West Point. They could be a great fit here. That was it. Like, honestly, and when you put it in that perspective, then you realize, actually, maybe that was the best thing that could have happened in order for me to get recruited by West Point. That's wild to think about. It's like, actually, if I had played really well, then he might not have gotten a good read on my mentality or my attitude, because it's easy to have a good attitude when things are going well. And it turns out, actually, he already knew about the talent piece. He was trying to evaluate something else. And so what happened was actually ideal. And that's one of those things that you don't get until hindsight happens. And so for so many people, they're so worried about what happened. They're like, oh my gosh, I just blew that opportunity.
Massively important what you mentioned though, Jack, of they saw video of you and they have talked to so many people before that. Because a lot of what happens on the back end is when we get this perception, if they don't respond to email, that they're not watching our video, when in all reality, they watch probably 95% of the video that you send, right? So we just have to keep that in the back of our mind, guys, especially if you've had some pre-existing conversations with them. It's so important to stay consistent with how you email them, because if you do have a bad game, they've already seen all the good stuff that you can do, right? And this might be the first time they've seen you. It's like exactly what Jack's perception, Jack's experience was.
Keep in mind, though, like if you don't send video beforehand and you just play really poorly in front of them, that's the only thing they have to go off of.
Yep.
And so they might say, maybe just had like a bad day, maybe just had a bad day, but they don't have anything else to go off of. They're like, that stinks, but if they have all this other video on you and you have a bad day, they're like, yeah, but that's not really indicative of all the video that I've seen. And it just completely changes the perception of everything. I'm a senior, just started the recruiting process, going to a showcase this weekend. Should I take a gap year since I'm behind? My personal opinion is that it's too early for you to make that call. You might not need to take a gap year. I mean, we'll have real talk. You could be a senior and start your recruiting process right now. Do you have an advantage? No, you don't have an advantage. But could you still get recruited? 100%. Where you don't need to take a gap year? 100%. Where you don't need to go to a JUCO? 100%. All of those things could happen. And so I would say you're probably too early to make that call. You probably don't need to make that call yet. I would go do a massive amount of volume, meaning make a lot of videos, contact a lot of college coaches, post a ton on social media, like do all those things and just do like 10 times more than all of your friends. And then you can make the call if you need to take a gap year or if you want to go the JUCO route, something like that. But I think that I think it's probably too early for you to make that call even.
That email 101 workshop would be awesome for you to go through.
Would probably be a banger.
Yeah, it would. And it's, once again, if you're producing a mass amount of content and trying to get in front of as many coaches, I haven't really seen, and Jack, correct me if I'm wrong here, anybody who's taken a gap year or entertained the thought of the gap year, there's always some reason why it's not typically a great idea, right? Like it's almost better right now, especially given the landscape of college baseball, college football, college whatever, going to the junior college route, if that's a consideration, right? Like you don't usually lose a year of eligibility. So look, if you're late, fine, but at least try, see what happens, and you will probably be surprised as to how many people are still recruiting.
I had that question yesterday. Somebody asked me, would you rather take a gap year or would you rather go JUCO? And I said, both of them can work and both of them can fail, but I personally would rather go the JUCO route.
Yeah.
Now, I'm also a little bit biased because I went the JUCO route and it worked out swimmingly for me, right? But I really believe it, because when you're in a gap year, you're not technically playing against collegiate competition. You're playing against older kids, but not collegiate competition. When you play at a junior college, you're playing against collegiate competition, and that matters.
Spot on.
I think gap year stuff is sketchy at best. I'm not saying it can't work. I'm not saying it's not the right move for somebody, but there needs to be some serious consideration happening before you do something like that, which kind of leads me into the next question, which I also think needs to take some serious consideration, which is, what's your view on reclassing, which seems to be a big thing versus postgraduate year. Reclassing is one of those things that has surfaced in the last 2 or 3 years, basically since the portal has become a real thing, where reclassing has entered the conversation for a lot of people. And it's a lot more popular now than it used to be. For those who are wondering, by the way, reclassing is simply when you hold your kid back a year. So if they're a 2026 right now and they're starting their second semester of senior year, you would hold them back a year. And this would essentially be their second semester of junior year, and they would turn into a 2027 graduate instead of a 2026 graduate. That's essentially what reclassing is. A lot of people view reclassing, post-grad year, even the portal, they view these things as no fault. Like there are no repercussions for doing these things. And I just want to be clear, there are. Like it can be an amazing thing for athletes and it can be a terrible thing for athletes. Like I think, Connor, I think of Marcus, right?
Yeah.
And so we had a family who the kid was really talented football player, but he was a little bit young. And he was on the verge of getting some D1 offers, but the D1 schools just couldn't quite get there during his senior year. And he had like 20 D3 schools that were after him. He was like, man, like I know I can play D1. And so that family, based on conversations that we had with them, based on conversations they had with college coaches, that family decided to reclass, and he redid basically his senior year. Well, kid got a full ride scholarship to Stanford and ended up with like 8 or 10 D1 offers his senior year, the second time. And it worked out incredibly well for him, right? Like literally life changing. He's going to Stanford and he's not going to pay a dime. That's about as good as it gets. Okay. But at the same time, I will always share the flip side, which is I remember, Connor, I took a call with a family like 2 years ago, like long time ago. And the family had told me that they reclassed because they thought that the kid had D2 and D3 offers. They thought the kid was D1 talent, so they reclassed. When they reclassed, though, not only the second year, not only did they not get D1 offers, they didn't get D2 or D3 offers.
Right.
They had 0 offers. And so people think, oh, automatically my kid will be bigger, faster, stronger if I hold him back a year. For sure, we're going to get more. If we got D2 and D3 now, we'll definitely get D2, D3 next year. And that's not true. That's not the case. And reclassing, the other thing, remember the emotional toll it takes on a kid. They're not going to graduate with their friends. They're not going to graduate with the kids that they've been with. They're going to get held back. They're going to have a whole other friend group. They're going to have different academic stuff because they've already technically finished that, right? It's this weird situation. And I'm not saying that reclassing is not the move for anyone. For Marcus, it was the move, hands down. But my point is that it is not a surefire save. It is not that everyone who's not getting the interest that they're looking for should simply reclass. It doesn't work like that. And in fact, it could be the worst decision you ever made. It could also be the best decision you ever made, which is why if you're seriously considering reclassing, I highly recommend you talk to a professional. Talk to somebody, run them through your situation. Doesn't even have to be us. I'm saying just talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about before you make a decision like that, because it's an irreversible decision and it can be really dangerous, or it can be really great for you.
And I remember with Marcus in particular, we had lots of discussion. I mean, we probably had a week's worth of discussions with him before he actually made that decision of laying everything out for him and making a blueprint plan of like, if this, then this, if this, then this. And very similarly, I remember there was a baseball family that walked through here and same situation. They chose not to reclass. And what ended up happening is their offers didn't go away. They ended up at a D3 school and it was fantastic. They were super happy about it. So I think that just making sure that you're making the best decision with the information that you currently have. So with Marcus, for instance, there was a lot of communication with D1 coaches that were like, hey, look, like we're on the board, you're on our board, you're just really low. If you were to, and there was a conversation and honest communication with that coach of like, hey, if I were to reclass, does that change anything? And I remember we asking that question with the coach and he's like, yeah, it changes everything. So going into that and knowing that you have those communications set prior to making that decision is massively important.
Yeah. And it's the same thing for the portal.
Yeah.
People often think that the portal is magic land where you automatically move to a school that's better and you get the D1 offer and you do all those things. Okay. Couple things on this. First of all, the majority of portal pickups are lateral. Yeah. They're lateral, meaning players are not moving to a higher level. They're changing teams within the same level. Most of course, you get the kids who go D2 to D1, D3 to D1. Like you get those. But I'm saying the majority of people in the portal will move laterally. They will move from one D1 school to another D1 school. They will move from one D2 school to another D2 school. Okay. That's the first thing. The second thing is right now, the portal. Okay. Are there a lot of players entering the portal or only a little bit of players? A lot of players. Okay. The more players that enter the portal, the more competitive it gets. So as the portal gains steam, which it is like a freight train right now, okay, more players than ever are entering the portal. That makes it more competitive than ever. The best time to enter the portal was 3 years ago. Okay. And every year that goes from now, it's going to get harder and harder and harder and harder and harder to get recruited out of the portal. So for all the people right now who have like a junior and they're like, you know what? A junior in high school, man, in 3-4 years, if we don't like where we're at, we'll just go hit the portal. Best of luck. I'm not saying it can't work. I'm just saying it is not magic land that a lot of people make it out to be. They make it like you could just show up in the portal, throw your name in, and you're good to go.
Well, everyone always talks about Trinidad Chambliss, right? Like the Ole Miss quarterback that went off and just had a great year, went from D3. But look at his track record also, guys. Like, I mean, you have to remember he's on a national championship team, right? And so very rare instance. And he was like player of the year, won like the Heisman for that division. So my point of it is like that's the one of one, guys. There's 4,000 other people that are there. So like if you're gonna have a rebuttal for us and say, like, it worked for him. Yeah, it worked for him, but that's also the 1%, right? So what about the other 90% that we're talking about? So to be very cognizant and then once again make the best decision with the information that you're given.
And they get the publicity, right?
No doubt.
Like you're like all the other people who all the people with the transfer portal doesn't work out for, you're not seeing them on TV, right?
No doubt.
There would be way more of those people than the opposite, right?
Yep.
Actually, the same thing, Connor, I think about this a lot with showcases and camps because you'll get
Yep.
the kid who is like, oh, I just went to one event. I played really well. They gave me an offer and it was over. And then they say that they're friends, right? And then their friends think, oh, that's just how it works. And then parents start shelling out money for all of these events, thinking that's how they're going to get exposure. It's like, hold on. Yes, there are kids where that's what happens, and that's great. And that might happen for you too. But just understand the majority of players, that's not happening. And more people are wasting money on showcases than actually investing in showcases. And so it's the same thing where like people try to take the one exception and apply it to everybody. No, that's the exception. That's why it's called an exception. It's not happening for the majority of players.
No doubt. I like what you said about the investing into a camp because you already have some pre-existing notion that they like you and know who your kid is and like you're going to the camp based on once again information that you're given, and that comes directly from the source. It doesn't come from us, it doesn't come from anybody else. It comes directly from the college coach. What are they telling you about what they need and how they are really operating inside of that class? And if they're not giving you any hints on their recruiting that, or they don't need you, or they don't know who you are, it's very difficult. You have to be two things. You either have to play super well at the camp, or you just have to be a freak of nature when you walk on the field and you check the eye test. So now they're watching you the entire day. And for once again, the 90 percentile, that's not your child.
We should start using that language of investing in
I really like that. Yeah,
that actually makes a lot of sense because the whole point of going to a showcase or a camp is you think you're going to get a return on investment. Yep. You think that by going to that event, you are going to progress a relationship with a college coach, or you think that that's going to be the last domino before you get an offer. But the idea is that you're going to that event. Parents, when you pay $300 for an event or $1,500 for an event, depending on the event that we're talking about here, like the idea is you're paying that money because you think it's going to end up coming back to you in the form of a scholarship at some point, right? That's an investment. Like when you invest in the stock market, you're investing money with the idea that you're going to get a return on it. And so I think that people should start thinking in terms of investing in showcases and camps, not paying for showcases and camps.
Yep.
Right. What's your best advice for 2030 grads that are sending emails? How many should they send per year? As a 2030, I mean this in the nicest way. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You're fine. 2029s are freshmen right now. 2030s would be 8th graders. coaches are not going to recruit you right now. They're not. And so like what I would say is, how many should you send as an 8th grader? Answer is probably 0. But if you wanted to send them, let's say freshman year, okay, I talk about this a lot, which is flexing the muscle. Then, how many should you send? I don't know, 30, 40. Now, most people say, hey, contact, 20 to 30 schools your junior year. No. Junior year, 100 plus, easy. Needs to be 100 plus. But like freshman year, when you're just flexing the muscle, it's like, yeah, just go contact 30 schools, get the feeling of writing a script, getting the video, getting the stats, pressing send, like doing that. And the analogy that I often use for this is like lifting weights. Like if you haven't worked out for a year and you're going to go in the gym and you're going to think you're going to bench press 315, unless you're Connor Justice, like it's not going to happen.
Oh, stop. Stop. Come on.
No, but like it's not going to happen, right? In order to bench press 315, like you're going to need to get into the gym and you're going to flex those muscles every day for 6 months or 12 months or 18 months or whatever, so that you're ready to do that. When it's time to go contact 100 plus schools junior year and hit the ground running like crazy, you just don't want that to be the first time that your kid has sent an email, because the odds that they're going to go 0 to 100 to do that, basically 0. Like it's not going to happen. So as a 2030, you probably should just hang out. You're probably fine. Freshman year, I'd say probably like 30 to 40. Send something like that over freshman year. Just get used to it and you're fine. It also depends a little bit on the sport, but for the most part.
Freshman summer, Jack, is okay to start flexing the muscle freshman summer, because look, guys, you're trying to sandwich yourself into a position that is, whenever that window opens up when they can communicate with you, do they know who you are, right? And there's 2 ways to do that, and Jack has mentioned this. Like, you can go and do all these events and all these camps and you can probably be noticed in some way, or you could send them an email and it's a lot easier and a lot faster. And it's just one of those things that, like, what you're trying to run right into that date. And so this is what we talk about with strategy a ton, is like, how do you do it, right? And when do you start, and how? It's good questions though. 2030s are fine. You guys hang out.
And so at some point, something like this, you should come to the email workshop. You might still be a little bit early. If you wanted to come, you could. It's $99 right now, so it's not going to break the bank. If you want to just come and learn, you could. But for anybody that's wondering how we produce the results that we do, especially through email, that's coming January 20th, email workshop, d1scholarship.com/email workshop. Come hang out. We'll show you everything that we know, stuff that we don't share here on lives or on social media. It's the good stuff. My parents only want me to be a maximum of 6 hours away from college. So should I email coaches that are further away just to get seen more? I run track. Yeah, the answer is yes. You should do that for a number of reasons. The first reason is because if you get interest outside of the 6 hours, you can use that as leverage against the schools that are within 6 hours to accelerate those conversations and potentially get offers from schools that would have been on the fence. The second thing that I'll say is your parents only want you to be a maximum of 6 hours away. If you get interest from an incredible school that's more than 6 hours away, and that school is now showing interest in you, wants you to come visit, is talking about giving you an offer, gives you a fat scholarship amount, I'm telling you, just from experience, your parents will start to ask questions to themselves. Hey, maybe we do let them go outside of 6 hours. When there's nothing there and it's just hypothetical, the answer is, it sounds like no. But when you actually have something tangible, like, hey, this school that's an incredible school is giving me a big scholarship, then the parents often will be like, well, now we need to start considering that. So that's another reason that I would contact schools that are more than 6 hours away, personally. College tournament has 8 schools on your list coming to your hometown. Connor, you want to take this one? Should you email them to say you're attending? And
Yes.
what should you say?
1000% yes. Okay, so you're trying to separate yourself from everybody else that's there. Okay, so the practice of sending an email before, letting them know what, look, if you already have the schedule or the field schedule or the court schedule, whatever sport it's in, good practice to tell them that schedule, just so if they do run across your email, they can find you very easily. Secondly, to that, in what do you say, make sure you include some video in that, okay? Because they always come back to that as a reference, right? Like if they do show up at your game and they're watching you play and they like you remotely, right? Or it starts to become recognition of name. Okay. So they're watching 11 other players, once again, depending on sport, but they're watching all these people run around the floor and like do different things. They're just focused on you instead of somebody else because of recognition of name. Okay. So, great example of this. Hey, coach, I'll be in attendance for XYZ event. Here's our court or game schedule or field schedule. I've also included a link to my highlights or whatever it is. Looking forward to playing in front of you soon. Send. Okay. So that should be email one. And then after the tournament is done, what it does is it allows you to have this segue, right? Of even if you don't receive any response back, it's an easy segue into the next conversation, which is, hey, coach, had a great time at XYZ event. Here's some highlights from that in case you missed it. Send. Okay. So those are two emails that are very similar and or just put you in a much different light in the coach's eyes than if you don't do anything at all. Okay.
All right. Oh, look at this. I can click on the questions that are, do you see that?
Sick. That's awesome. Yeah. Super cool.
So the questions that are on YouTube, it looks like, I can showcase the question on the screen. It looks like I can't do that for Instagram though. So the Instagram ones we'll just have to pull from Instagram.
Cool.
But if you want to see your question on the screen, which it looks really cool, then you should come over to YouTube.
Super awesome. Derek, this is awesome. Yeah. First one.
So, yeah, Derek, welcome. You're the first one to be featured like that. So son's class of 27 long snapper. How much should he be posting on Twitter? So far, he's emailed like 60 schools. How many should we email? How many a day? Thank you. We appreciate all you do. So a few things on this, okay? The first thing I'm going to tell you, let's answer the first question. How much should he be posting on Twitter? Right now, I'd say 2 times a week at least. The reason is because you probably have a lot of footage from fall that's still fresh and recent. And right now, football coaches are in recruiting mode. So right now is the time that you should be posting a minimum of 2 times a week. If you were like, what's the maximum I should be posting? There's no such thing. You could literally post as much as you have good content of. Okay. So that's the first thing. So far, he's emailed like 60 schools. How many should we email? How many a day? I'm going to tell you right now, emailing, great thing to do. Even for your sport, great thing to do. Majority of your interest is probably going to come from Twitter because you play football. So if the answer, if the question is like, should I email or should I DM coaches? And you could only pick one, the answer is DMing coaches and posting content on social media. If you're open to doing both, because remember, families that get multi-platform exposure, meaning they're getting exposure in multiple places, not just email, but email and Twitter, or Twitter and Instagram, or Twitter and showcases, right? Multi-platform exposure families get 59% more interest. So for you, I highly recommend not only emailing schools, but also DMing schools. And if you can only pick one, I would actually stop emailing schools and DM them. Now, if your kid plays a different sport than football and you're in the chat right now, don't listen to that because it changes for your sport. Your sport might be different and email might be the way for your sport. But Derek, for you, man, Twitter's the name of the game. If you got time to email, that's a great thing as well. And so that's what I would rock and roll with. Connor, you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, just the importance of, look, Twitter is where the money is for football, right? That's where coaches communicate. It's where they go watch video. They have a whole team that's designated just for watching video on Twitter and finding players. Okay. So like, we need this. Let me go through the archives of everyone who's being recruited for this position in high school. Okay. So they have a full team that's designated for this. The importance of emailing too, Derek, if you're going to do both, like they do run as parallels. Okay. So like if you do email and start sending out video, they may watch your video to a greater extent there because it's, once again, they're getting an email from you. It's already posted somewhere else. So they may watch the video and evaluate through email and then jump over to Twitter and then direct message you, right? So like they do run as parallels. And if you can get them to smash into each other where the coach is now talking to your son, awesome job. Okay. But like Jack said, if you have anything that you're going to spend a lot of time with, a lot over your time to Twitter.
Man, you said something so important, which is there's overlap between platforms.
Yep.
And this is something so many people miss because they think that when they're emailing a coach and the coach isn't responding, that it's worthless that they're doing that. It's not. It's not. Okay. Our response is great. Yeah. We want responses. Of course we do. That's what we're going to talk about at the Email 101 workshop on January 20th. Come, we'll show you how we get the responses that we do. But just because they don't respond doesn't mean they're not interested. And for a lot of people, if a coach prefers to recruit via social media, they might get your email, and then instead of responding there, they might go follow you on social media instead. Now, maybe if you hadn't sent that email, you wouldn't have gotten the follow. And if you didn't get the follow, it wouldn't have turned into a DM conversation, which wouldn't have turned into a phone call conversation, which wouldn't have turned into a visit, which wouldn't have turned into an offer. And maybe you wouldn't have gotten the offer because you didn't send the email that they never responded to.
Yep.
Right. That's the first thing. Also, Connor, do you know about the network effect of how I got recruited to Mississippi State?
Yeah, I remember you telling me about this. Like,
It's wild.
It was like,
For those who don't know, like I ended up getting a nice scholarship to Mississippi State. I never once emailed Mississippi State. Never once. But do you know how I got recruited to Mississippi State? I had emailed the University of San Diego because, man, that campus is beautiful. And I love San Diego. The tacos are legit. It's for real down there. Okay. So I wanted to go to San Diego, emailed the San Diego coach. Guess what? Never heard from the San Diego coach. Never heard from him. But guess what happened? Mississippi State was looking for my position in grad class. They were looking in the South and they couldn't find it. They felt like they had exhausted the region. So he called his contact, his buddy on the West Coast, which is where I lived. He called his buddy on the West Coast and said, hey, do you got any names on the West Coast for this position in grad class? Anybody that you've sort of seen popping up? And the guy goes, yeah, there's this kid Kruger. You should really check him out. He emailed me. We didn't need his position in grad class, but you should check him out. He's pretty good. Well, guess who that coach was? The coach at San Diego. And so the message that I sent to San Diego that they never responded to is the reason that I got recruited by Mississippi State, even though I never contacted Mississippi State. This is called the network effect. And it's why it's so incredibly important that you contact a lot of schools. And again, one of the things we're going to talk about at the email workshop on January 20th. What does recruiting contact period mean? So there's different basically rules and periods of recruiting throughout the year. You could have contact periods, you can have quiet periods, you can have dead periods. Here's what, first of all, contact period means there's basically no rules as to when they can contact you, how much they can contact you, when they can see you, etc. Okay. One thing that I want to point out about contact periods, or just like these different recruiting seasons in general, is that people hear the term dead period and they assume that recruiting is off for that period. And I get why. It's literally called the dead period, but it's a very misleading name because during the dead period, you can still have digital communication with college coaches. Might not have in-person communication with college coaches, but you can have digital communication with college coaches. And so that should not slow you down or stop you at all when you're contacting college coaches. The only time a coach cannot contact you and you cannot have that back and forth dialogue is during what they call a recruiting shutdown, which there's very few days out of the year where there's actually a recruiting shutdown. Think like Christmas, right? Like there's very few days where there's actually a recruiting shutdown. And so for all the people who stop all their contacting, all everything during the dead period, you're just missing out. There's no reason not to do that. And in fact, dead periods are some of the best times to contact college coaches because a lot of people think that dead periods you can't contact them. So they don't contact them, which means they get less emails, less DMs, which means they're more likely to see and read yours, period. Best way to get on the radar of Power 4 is questionnaire and follow-up emails enough to have someone check on your progress. And he says this is specifically for track. 9 times out of 10, I'm saying questionnaire is not the best way to get on a radar.
Yeah, correct. So I'll take the questionnaire question just because it is important for people to know. So like if a coach asks you to fill out their recruiting questionnaire, what they're really doing is putting you in their backend server that is most likely connecting you to their admission office. Okay, so they're labeling you as a prospective student athlete, which does two things. One, it gets you more money on the academic side. So say we're talking about D3 school, right? This is how they're able to like point out and shoot your name to the top because you are that athlete. Second thing that it does is it builds this rapport with like who they are and they're able to like label you and keep you organized. So we had a system when I was a college coach and it was 5-star all the way down to 1-star. 1-star, they're never going to play for you. You don't know who they are. These are people who honestly, as soon as they go and fill it out, and I didn't ask them to do that, and I don't know who that person is, they're getting labeled as a 1 star and it doesn't do anything for them on the back end of the server. Okay. So just to keep this from like overflowing, because I could talk about this a lot. If a coach asks you to fill it out, go fill it out and then tell them that you did so. It's just a way for them to keep up, but it's not the best way for them to keep up. Jack, you can piggyback off of that.
But what Connor's saying is, don't go fill out 77 of these questionnaires thinking that that's how you're getting recruited. It's a waste of time. Like it's time consuming. Some of those questionnaires are freaking long.
They're
long.
They're getting more extensive with like links and all this stuff. Look, I can say from experience that I never went to watch a video inside of our back end server where the recruiting questionnaires were. The only thing that I used that for was to tie them to admissions so admissions knew who we were looking at to bring into our school. Okay.
Yeah. So best way to get on the radar of Power Forward to answer your question directly, because you run track or your kid runs track, email is going to be big for you. But really, I got to tell you, for something like track, swimming is the same way. Golf is kind of similar too. And even tennis a little bit with UTR, where stats are like really important. For track, it is just about the times. It's about the times. You could be really fast and not do really any marketing, and be in good shape because of that. Of course, if you're like borderline, then, and I'm not suggesting you do nothing in terms of marketing, but it's about the times, period. And so, yeah, lots of follow-up emails. I would also recommend posting on social media, just because track is cool because it's very like it's athletic. It's a very athletic sport. So if your kid is like insanely athletic, that shows well on video. Even though track is not a video sport, it still like looks dope, and you might be able to get a viral clip out of it of your kid doing something insane. And despite what people think, that can make a big difference. Let's see here. What do we got? In Maine for baseball, there's limited high school competition. Does the size of the high school impact interest? He plays travel baseball. Should he consider prep school? He is currently a freshman. Sorry, I'm reading it. There were like weird capitalizations and stuff that I'm trying to. why did I make it harder?
I don't know.
Apparently, I can't read.
That's so funny.
Okay, so in Maine, so does the size of the high school impact interest? For baseball, largely not. For baseball, largely not, because a lot of baseball is centered around travel ball. So a lot of it's going to be based on your club team, your travel team, and what he's doing in the summer, right? And you say he plays travel baseball, that's going to be a much bigger deal for you than how big his high school is. By the way, that advice changes per sport. If your kid plays football, the high school that you go to matters actually a pretty good deal, because there isn't really club or travel football. You'll have 7-on-7, but not the same thing. And so the high school actually does matter for high school, or the high school does matter for football. Not that you can't get recruited if you don't go to a big high school, but it helps if you do. Now, I'll give you an example, though, because you're talking about Maine, which, let's be real, Maine is not known as a baseball hotbed. But when I hear this, I think a lot about Rachel. And Connor, I don't even know if you know much about Rachel, but they lived in Alaska. Do you know about this story?
Yeah, you told me this. I didn't personally work with it. I think that you kind of took the helm on that one just because it is such a unique situation.
Yeah. So we had this family from Alaska. And, you know, I don't know if you guys know this, but college coaches are not just stopping in Alaska, as you could probably imagine. And the question was like, can we get recruited then? Like, can we get recruited? And I told him, I said, yes, it's just going to be a little bit of a different process for you guys. And that family ended up getting, I don't know, a lot. I don't remember the number. At one point, I remember the number was 22 schools, but I don't remember what they finished with. And so, but again, travel baseball was it. You didn't have coaches going to their high school in Alaska. It's just not a thing. Should he consider a prep school? He's currently a freshman. I wouldn't necessarily consider a prep school specifically for baseball. I don't think that's going to make a huge difference for you. If you're going to go to a prep school because you want him in a different environment or you want it for academic reasons, totally fine. But I wouldn't go to a prep school specifically for baseball. I would focus more of your attention on getting on a better traveler club team than I would getting to a better high school team, if that makes sense.
We've done it with Hawaii, Alaska, and Canada, where you just at a disadvantage, right? Where it's extremely difficult because you're not in the same place and not in the same stratosphere as these coaches in a large portion of where they go recruit. So just making sure this is extremely important for you guys. Capture video, please. Like capture video and being able to send that to coaches because the likelihood that you're able to go to more than 3 to 4 events where a coach might be there is gonna be pretty low unless you're working solely in the Northeast, and even that, like, they travel down south. They're kinda like geese, right? Like, they travel down south to go recruit, so it's extremely difficult. Make sure that you're capturing as much video as possible, especially over the next 2 years.
Yep. 28 baseball player, 3.6 GPA, no AP or honors. Are high academic schools like Richmond, Jitterbug, Binghamton out of reach? Where's the cutoff? So here's what I don't like to do. I don't like to make the call for schools because I don't know. And honestly, those numbers fudge and change depending on their current admissions class for the entire class. It changes depending on that year's recruiting class. It changes based on, I mean, there's like a lot of different factors. How much they like you as a player, how much they fight for you behind closed doors. All of those things matter. So I'm not going to sit here and say, yes, it's good enough. No, it's not good enough. Here's my recommendation. Reach out to those schools. And when you get into conversations with them, they will be very clear about whether that's going to be good enough or whether it's not going to be good enough. And I know that's like, well, I'd rather you just tell me yes or no. No, listen, it's up to the school because there's fudging that happens. I've seen Ivy League schools that fudge a ton for a player, and I've seen Ivy League schools not fudge at all for an athlete. It's completely dependent upon the situation and other external factors. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, yes, that's good enough. No, that's not good enough. I'm not the one who makes the call. Like, you should be reaching out to all of those schools, building relationships with them, and then let them say, yes, it's good enough, or no, it's not good enough. Sophomore been getting DMs from D1 coaches through X and Instagram. Are these legit, or are they sending these to everyone? What's the
DMs? Yeah, context. We need some context here.
We need some context. Like, what's happening in those DMs? Probably changes it. If it's come to my camp, probably sending it to everybody. But no, it probably depends. Looks like, I'm trying to look at your profile picture. It looks like baseball. Yeah, it depends on the context of those DMs. We would need some more information to know exactly what's happening.
Chances of you getting multiple DMs that look the same, just going off of like what we've seen, chances of you getting DMs that look the same about a certain camp is pretty low. And coaches don't really send DMs unless they're interested. So we would need more context to see what it looks like. But if they're sending you, hey, we'd like you, or hey, what's your schedule? Then they are interested, right? Like just read through the lines a little bit as to what they're asking and how that really looks. Also, if you've sent them DMs before, like that's a huge portion to this. Like if you sent them DMs and now they're inviting you to a camp, like not a whole lot of context there. Like we need to dive deeper and have a little bit more a discovery with that particular school to kind of figure out where they were at. And similar to what we said really early in the talk, if you were here.
Hi, I'm from South Africa. Question here: do college coaches travel to countries such as South Africa? The answer is definitely no to that one. They're not at least in the United States. Maybe there's schools in Africa that are going to travel to South Africa, but Chapman is not flying down to South Africa. How can I impress them? It's going to be a lot of digital communication. I am not an expert in international recruiting. I'm not going to pretend to be. And so I think that question is probably best for somebody else. DMs I'm getting are invites to their camps, probably being sent to a lot of people. It's too early for you to know if those are legit or not. I would not just start saying yes to all of those thinking that they're genuine interest. It's too early for you to know. Always good advice. Thanks, guys. Great to see you, Deanna. Thanks for coming. Freshman year was rough with grades, 2.5. Now in 10th, have mix of better grades, approximate GPA 3.8. When sending emails of interest to local attorneys, can I just use my current GPA in the email? Yeah, 100%. Just use your current GPA. Keep in mind, they'll probably look at your cumulative GPA when you actually apply to the school. But for now, just use the current GPA that you have.
Also, how important, like, we could talk about this for an entire session, but how important is GPA and grades? Like, I know that it's just an outdated conversation, but it is so important. I mean, we've had so many talented athletes that are on the cusp of, like, just say, like, a 3.0. So to answer this individual's question from earlier, but, like, there's a 2.9, and it is, like, pulling teeth to get these coaches to talk to them. And then you have a lesser athlete that is a 3.6, 3.7 student, and they're doing the same process and running through this, and my point is, guys, make it as easy for the coach as possible, and this is to relay to all high school athletes. Like, the more hurdles you have to jump through to get a coach to recruit you, the harder the process is going to be for you, and one of those big hurdles is going to be your grades.
Connor, I had when I filmed the testimonial interview with Kathy, well, that was recent, like last week, late last week, basically. That was one of the things that she said. She was like, I love the way she put it. She's like, people know that grades are important, but they underestimate how important.
Yeah.
Like, if
It's a difference in tens of thousands of dollars. Like,
sometimes
hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah.
Okay, so like the offer that I sent you this morning from the athlete, like, I don't how much? 21 grand in academic scholarships. Right? It's 80 grand just in academic money. And then when you throw athletic money on top of that, it pushes it over 100K. But it's like a ridiculous amount of money.
But what you said is super important, Jack. Like, you probably don't get to that point if your grades are not there. So my point is the athletic money comes after the academic money in most cases, right? Like, they check the box there, you go through admissions, you get accepted into the school, you get that piece of it. Unless you're talking to a major school, so like a P4 mid-major or like a high-end Division I that can just throw out money and it's not a problem, chances are they're going to wait for the academic money to then give you what the rest of, like, that makes sense for them.
Well, always, because it saves them money. That's
no doubt.
Mississippi State. Like, if you get 50% academic money and they only have to give you 50% athletic, that gives them another 50% that they can go get another good player.
Yep.
Right? And you're still on a full ride.
Yep.
So it's a really big deal. 27 graduate, not had a great season. Is reclassing a good idea, or just try and work the season? Too late for 27 offers now. Too early to reclass. You're at 27.
Way too early. Yeah, way too early.
You have so much time. Way, way, way too early for you to start thinking about reclassing. Dun, 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 dun. Flew from Hawaii to North Dakota for Suns official.
Huge. That's awesome.
That's a flight and a half. And Hawaii to North Dakota is extreme. That is one extreme to another. Congratulations, though. That's awesome. We love to see that. If my son is, someone said, how about lacrosse? I don't know what that means. If my son, class of 2029, when can he start emailing the schools? Thank you again. I don't see, I'm trying to look at the profile picture. It looks like maybe soccer, but sophomore year for you is probably good. Freshman year, you can start sending emails to Flex. Sophomore year is when I would start ramping it up. And by junior year, you should be full speed ahead. Again, email workshop, January 20th, d1scholarship.com/email workshop. We're going to share everything we've learned about email. We've sent a ton of emails, and we've generated tens of millions of dollars in scholarships, and email is like the primary way that we started conversations. So if you just want to learn everything that we've done, it's probably the move. And tickets are $99, not going to break the bank. Should freshmen email school regardless of the level they play at? Again, yes. I would flex the muscle freshman year, and then you can go from there.
I don't know if we've had this conversation. Go through the questions if there's still
Oh,
some popping up.
what do you got?
Uh, I don't know if we've gone over this. How much better and are women's sports at communication with athletes than men's sports? It is insane. Like, is that not true though? Like women's sports, they are dialed in. They'll tell you yes or no. And this is like obviously case by case, but from what we've seen, I mean, it is insane. At least they give you a picture as to what they're looking for. Whereas men's sports, they might just drag you through the mud for 3 months and you have no idea. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, here's, a full ride to XYZ school. And you're like, I didn't even know if you liked me, right? Like, it's insane.
Dude, there's so many things like that in recruiting, right? Like you have women's sports and how they operate. You have parents in some sports, if we're being real, parents in some sports are crazier than parents in other sports.
No
Like
doubt.
there's good parents in every sport. There's some crazy parents in every sport, but some of them have higher concentrations. And I'm not going to put anybody on blast right now. I'm not going to say which sports have the crazy parents, but some of y'all play in sports where like the majority of y'all are off the hook.
Yeah.
It is
It's
anyway.
awesome. But no, I thought about that today because I was going through with one of our clients and we were talking about relationships and like him starting this process and a lot of these emails back. He plays in men's sport. And so a lot of the emails back he's getting are like, nice update or like, great, thanks. And then you'll get like a women's reply that's like, it could be a male or female coach. It doesn't matter. But the way that they're interacting with the video that you send them or the response or the questions that you ask, it's like a full page. And I'm like, great, like, this is so much easier.
So do you think that has to do with the coach, most of the coaches in female sports, like more of them being female, or do you think it has to do with how those coaches are communicating with female athletes?
Both. I think it's dual-sided. I think females already are better at communication than males. Like, I think that they're more detail-oriented, and so they're going to answer questions more transparently and stuff like that. I also think that male coaches have to operate in that space in a larger capacity of time, so that means that they have to be better at communication, and I think it goes with both, to be honest. Like, the answer is yes. Like, right? It's like, "Do you think?" And it's like, "No, just yes."
Yes, the answer is yes. What is a good way to appeal a D2 offer that most of the money is academic? How do you ask the coach for more athletic money? So the question is, my first question is it that the academic money and the little bit of athletic money that maybe they gave you doesn't cover 100% of it? Or is that that does cover most of it, but you would like more of the money to be athletic? If it's the second case, just leave it. It's fine. There's no problem there. If it's mostly academic, and you still have some tuition that you're going to be paying and you want more athletic money, there's a couple things you can do. The absolute best thing you can do is go get more offers and then tell the coach the money that you got from those schools and say, will you match it? It's very similar to if you're going to get recruited for a job and you have your current job and you're going to leave to go to the next job. A very reasonable question is, can you match my current salary? This would be virtually the same thing, just the recruiting version of that. So if you can go get more offers from schools that have an increased amount of money, then you'll be able to do that. I think of, what was his name? It was a while ago. But there was like one very stark difference where like that's exactly what happened. A client of ours, it's literally exactly what happened. They had an offer, but it wasn't as much money as they were hoping for. Another school gave them an offer. They turned it back to the first school and said, we got this much. Will you match it? School said, sure. They matched it. They got more money. And that was that. Actually, even Brian, I'm talking to Brian today, probably here in a couple hours. And even for them, they did the same thing. They got an additional 10 grand in scholarship money. And actually that way, for the person that's asking, the way that they got that is they just went to the coach and they said, hey coach, listen, like we might be able to make it work money wise, but I don't have an answer for you today. If you can get to X amount, then we can for sure make it happen. And that's basically what they did. And then the coach came back and said, yeah, we got an extra 10 grand a year for you. And they're like, done. And then they committed, right?
Yeah.
And that scholarship ended up being worth almost 170 grand. So that's how I would
Guys,
manage that.
the backstory on that family, guys, they were at one point talking to over 75 schools. Like, extremely cool. But they emailed so many schools. I mean, Jack, you remember them running the campaign?
Yeah.
Like, or in running that, it was insanity how many schools they were reaching out to and back to back, and like the amount of content they were able to produce and going to different events. And guys, I tell you how important it is. Like, yes, it's 75 schools, but they also emailed probably 250. And great plug into January 20th. But seriously, we can't stress enough how important it is.
January 20th, email 101 workshop. If you want to learn the exact things that we taught them, come hang out. We'll show you. But the point is also, I'll add on. I think one of the reasons that Connor was saying that is they contacted a ton of schools and got a ton of responses, which gave them a lot of leverage, which allowed them to have that kind of conversation at the end of the process. If you only have one school and you don't have any leverage, you're just kind of stuck with what you got. But when you have multiple offers coming through, that's when you can leverage those offers to get more scholarship money or to get more offers. Think about John, right? John Epps with Natalka, where they got an offer from a school that was in a conference as her dream school. They couldn't get the dream school to engage, but they got an offer from another school in that conference. Guess what they did? They took that offer to every single other school in the conference and said, we got an offer from this school. Are you recruiting my position in grad class? And guess what happened? They ended up getting 3 more offers from that conference, including the dream school. And then she committed to the dream school. And so coaches get super aggressive within conference. I mean, I think of Connor, do you know about Kaz? Do you know about when with West Point? So I was going on a visit to West Point, and it was the week of the visit. It was like let's call it I'm trying to remember now, a Tuesday maybe. And I was going on a visit on Saturday to West Point. Well, Tuesday night, and again, it might have been Wednesday night, I can't remember, but I get a call at like 8 p.m. from the Air Force coach. He calls me. It's like, Jack, how's it going, man? Kaz from Air Force. I heard you're visiting West Point on Saturday. That's awesome, man. Looking forward to it. What I'd love to do, though, is I'd love to fly you out tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. We'll get you out here to Air Force. I want you to come see Air Force before West Point. I think that you should do it. What we'll do, we'll show you around the campus. We'll get you plugged in here. First 2 years, you'll have great 2 years. After sophomore year, I'll push you out of the plane. We'll have a great time. What do you say?
So sick.
And that's like literally how he talks. He's very aggressive.
So cool, though.
Very energetic. And if you talk to anybody else who's been recruited by that guy, they say the same thing. It's not just because it was me. Like, that's just how he is.
Yeah.
But the point is, he heard that I was going to West Point. He's like, wait, kid is interested in service academies, which not everybody is. Kid has the grades to get into service academies, which is also tough. And like, kid is good enough to play there. And he's like, hold on, I want him to come out to Air Force first, because those coaches know the first school that you go to is usually the one that you fall in love with. And so he wanted me to go there first. And that's in conference competition. And the same happens in every single conference across the country. It's like,
we start to look at like, it even just reminds us of the bell curve that happens in recruiting, right? Of like, whenever we start building out, like, hey, get to a list of 100 and do this different stuff. There's always this bell curve, and it usually ends up with two-ish conferences where you fit into, and then it's taking that and using it against each other and letting them hash it out after the point, right? But like, it can shift up into D1, it can shift down into D3, it can shift anywhere that you are putting your money and efforts into, but it's really fun to see kind of how it starts this big, right? And then it slowly narrows the scope. And then once you're inside of that scope, it's madness and chaos, like within a 2-week span where you're getting 5 or 6 offers from two conferences. And that's where it becomes fun for us, because we're like, hey, now we have just built this entire pipeline. You've created this snowball effect, and now it's tumbling down the hill into an avalanche.
Now we go.
Yeah, we're so fun. Like,
now we go. No,
so
but
fun.
No, but it's But notice what you said. You said, "Oh, it starts like this, and then as you go deeper into the process, it narrows." But Connor, most people do the opposite.
Well, they start here, right? And look, I am guilty of this as well when I was going through my recruiting process. Like every 14, 15-year-old baseball player, it's like, hey, I'm going to start at LSU, and I'm going to go from LSU to Texas Tech to Texas to USC. And like, once you start in that same space, it's like, okay, I'm getting no traction here. Like, I am not good enough to play at these schools. And so it becomes a quick realization of like, okay, well, what's closer? What's in the same stratosphere? Like, I don't want to just jump off the side of the cliff of now I'm going back to junior college, right? So, what's in the same stratosphere, but is not equally as talented and is closer in proximity where I can actually make this happen, right? So, all of those factors being included, it's how you build a school list. I'm not saying, guys, like Jack and I can attest to this, always start at the tippy top, right? Like, where do you want to go to school? Start there, because if you never try and you never see what that looks like, then you'll never know. But the other 90 schools that you're going to plug into the school list, make sure that they are wide represented.
Yeah, it's I've met a lot of families who regretted contacting too few schools, but I've never met a single family who regretted
No,
contacting too many.
no doubt.
Because you can never have too much interest. You can never have too many options. And by the way, I think a fair question, I don't get asked this question a lot. I kind of wish I did. And the question is like, well, why do you need so much interest? Why do you need so many offers? Because the reality, guys, is that you only need one school to say yes. If a school that you love also loves you and gives you an offer, that's it. Like you don't need 10, you don't need 20. But why am I so big on getting as many as possible? And the answer is because the more schools that you have offers from, the more likely it is that you're going to be able to choose the best fit. If
Yep.
you only have an offer from one school, maybe it's the one you love, but maybe it's not. And then you're forced to go to that school because it's the only offer that you have. And
Yep.
so I'm really big on getting as much interest as possible, because that often leads to as many offers as possible, which leads to the highest likelihood that your kid is going to get to go to a school that you love, that's a great fit for them. And you want as much. I mean, you get to have the choice at the end of the process. Don't you want to have the choice? I think of Rachel, the Alaska family. I remember getting an email from them where they said he gets to pick and choose. This is amazing. I think of Tammy, Hawaii family, actually,
Yeah.
where it's the same thing. She's like, we got options. This is amazing. And it's
Yeah.
really fun to get options. Now, maybe you do everything in the recruiting process and you don't get options. Fine. Like that's the recruiting process. But man, how disappointing would it be if you could have had that, but you didn't because
Hmm.
you only contacted 20 schools because some book told you to.
Yeah. And you get to weed out the good and the bad, right? Like as you progress through and as it starts to shrink, I think that's a huge piece that we all miss, right? It's like I didn't like the way that felt from this coach, right? Or I didn't like the conversation, or this part of town just doesn't suit me. It doesn't fit with me and who I am as a person or what our family stands for. So like, look, like the second you get siloed into one opportunity in one school, it's extremely difficult because it's like, do I just say no and like not go play the sport that I've been playing for 18 years? Probably not, right?
Man,
Like,
I think it's so critical what you said though, is the comparison piece,
yeah,
right? I remember when I was in junior college, like when I figured out how the recruiting process actually works, I had more than a dozen D1 offers, but I narrowed it down to 3 of them.
yeah,
And I remember when I picked those 3 schools to go visit, because I didn't have enough weekends to go visit more than that. So I narrowed it down to 3 schools. And I remember deciding I want one primarily academic school. I want one primarily athletic school. And I want one that was like a hybrid, was
yeah.
basically like what I did. And I wanted that because I wanted to see the differences in each of them to be able to find the one that I wanted. Right. And so the comparison piece I think is so critical. I think of Rochelle. That was big for Rochelle,
So cool.
being able
Yes.
to go communicate with those different coaches and be like, oh man, because what you said is right. You might have fine relationship with them, on phone call and stuff, and then you get in person, you're like, man, there's just something off about that guy.
And you get to talk to the player. Like, so like we think about it, and if it gets to this point in the relationship, you get to go to campus and chances of you seeing players are extremely high. And you get to see how they interact with them, which is like you can tell really fast, especially as a parent. And I think this is like critical for all parents to understand. Is like you're sending your son or daughter off for 4 years. We have to remember that, right? So like not contacting enough schools and not doing enough to have leverage and offers and not understand what's going on and what you're getting yourself into, like you deserve that for you and for them is to understand exactly what the opportunity that you're getting into is.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 agree. Is D1 still an option for 2026? Depends on the sport that you play.
Yeah.
Like you play lacrosse, Probably not. If you play football, yeah. Yeah, we got 2026 athletes getting D1 offers right now for football. So yes, it depends on the sport that you play. But it's, less likely than it would have been 6 months ago or 12 months ago. But the answer is yes. Um, So again, there's another question about international recruiting. Just not an international expert, guys. I don't want to speak on something that I don't know. And Connor is also not an international recruiting expert.
I know one person that's done it and came over to USC Upstate, worked with them really closely. They had an agency. I asked them all about it just because I was curious. They had an agency that we worked with that would shoot out different stuff, and like that's how they got noticed. But think about it, guys. Like, what is the agency doing, right? Yes, they may have some communication and some connections with the schools, but they're largely just sharing video and saying like, "Do you need this? Do you need this?" So still good practice for you guys to take a hold of your recruiting process. And if you partner up with an agency, they're great, right? That yes, I would recommend highly that they've had sustained success inside of that space because you don't want to just go fork it over. It's extremely difficult and you're working uphill anyways.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, international recruiting is likely very much the same,
Yeah.
but there's nuances there that I just don't know enough about to feel confident to be like, yeah, let me speak eloquently.
Yeah, we don't know. That's like I said, that's solely off of one experience with one person who was talented and he's 6'4", 220. So like, let's
Yeah,
not like think that this is just a normal thing, but that's what he did.
yeah. Awesome. All right, we're going to finish with this question because it's just going to lead straight into the finale here. How long before you send a follow-up, second, third, etc.? Derek, love you, brother. If you want to know the answer to that question, come to the workshop on January 20th. On January 20th, we're going to lay out exactly what it is that we do. Try to share as much as possible for free on live streams and all that kind of stuff. But there are some super secrets that we're just not going to share and stuff like that. So January 20th, email 101 workshop. If you want to know all the secrets behind how we produce what we do via email, d1scholarship.com/email workshop. Connor, you got any last words for people before we hop?
No, guys, it's always a pleasure. I love doing these just because we get to interact with you in real time. And honestly, like you guys got to get a taste as to what we do and how we really operate. We love what we do. It's so fun. I think Jack and I had this conversation at 11:30 my time last night, where I mean it was insane, right? We were just on the phone, and it's extremely important for us to realize like the value is with you guys and you guys fulfilling and seeing your athletes get to do what they love. So, yeah, come hang out with us on January 20th. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm excited.
Gonna be awesome. All right, guys. We'll be back again tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, same time. If you want to come hang out live, we'll see you again tomorrow. The man, the myth, the legend, Cade will be with us.
Let's go.
Come hang out with Cade. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.